Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Amon's Bogus Hangout. Whenever our guests introduce themselves, Sarah, will you say hello and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Zero Heltier, and I write for the web, and I'm very bogus.
And you have author knowledge panel.
I do.
Steve.
Steve Grenzer, and one of the founders of the Deep SEO conference that's coming up in September. And we're going to hammer the crap out of that because we want people to show up.
Good to hear. And Terry, will you introduce yourself?
Terry Van Horn. I don't know. Wannabe author.
Wannabe author.
And I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the director of SEO research for Go Fish Digital. And I have a knowledge panel, but it's not necessarily an author knowledge panel. So I'm not quite
you're
sure.
Just famous altogether. You don't have to be an author to get one.
So Google had agent rank, and I wrote about it in 2007. And it looked like they wanted to know who the authors were. And they came out with Google Plus, where everybody had a profile. And when you verified your site in local search, you'd get a check mark on your profile page in Google Plus.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Most people weren't aware that they were putting plus marks there when you're getting their verification. But I would check it with every new client I would do an audit for. And only the ones with knowledge panels had the check marks.
On Google Plus?
Yeah.
Well, I had a check mark on Google Plus, and I'm not sure I had a knowledge panel then.
The check mark meant that you were verified in Google Plus.
Right.
And verification would often lead to a knowledge panel.
Oh, often, but not always. Okay.
Always.
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 Yeah, I guess I had a
because
knowledge panel and
the way we get people to add knowledge panels was to get them to verify themselves. And it always worked. Now the knowledge panel for verifying in Google My Business wasn't the same as a knowledge panel that you might get for having something about you in Wikipedia.
Yeah, there's two different types.
One was considered a local knowledge panel, and one was considered a brand knowledge panel.
Yeah, I can think of there was an architect in the UK that had the same name as Dixon Jones. And he was in Wikipedia, but the architecture firm was called Dixon Jones too. And it had a business listing, and the business listing was there instead of the Wikipedia listing.
And ironically, Danny Sullivan had a disambiguation panel, so he didn't have a full knowledge panel. He had a very short one that said, also see Danny Sullivan, technologist. Underneath the knowledge panel for Danny Sullivan, NASCAR race car driver. And his partner in crime, Barry Schwartz, had a disambiguation knowledge panel too, because there was a Barry Schwartz who's a psychologist. Yeah. And has written a couple books. And so Barry Schwartz had a little tiny box that it would say also Barry Schwartz. And there's a little picture of him.
Yeah, so on mine there's a disambiguation for the legislator. It isn't a knowledge panel, it just says Terry Van Horn, legislator. That's
and how many years ago did he pass away?
Pardon me?
How many years ago did he pass away?
Ago. Like before there was entity search, like you didn't find them until the second or third page because all my stuff was on it.
It's okay. I went to law school with him. I don't remember him either.
Yeah, that's an odd one. And if you look at the page now, that query for his name or my name, I have most of the results. He's got 2 or 3, and there's another guy out of Montreal who's working in technology, CEO of a firm. He had 2 listings.
You was Terry Van Horn too?
Pardon me?
Also, you was Terry Van Horn?
Yeah, exactly. Not all the difference is the middle name on all of us. The spellings are even exactly the same because you often see my last name with the E and without the E. But I own the domain, and that's opening up soon, so we'll see what happens then.
Are you going to use it?
Yeah, I'm going to use it. It's actually where I'm developing the theme. So I put it on. I was trying to do AMP, and after 3 weeks of that, I said, well, I ain't going to have any hair if I continue in this vein. So the next best thing is to do what I can to improve WordPress.
Is Google abandoning AMP? They seem to be moving away from it.
I don't know that they're moving away from it. They have opened up top stories to pages beyond AMP pages, but I think that's just to widen the, that was going to happen eventually. Anybody who thought they were going to just take AMP pages, but you still, I bet, have to meet the schema requirements of a publisher and all that stuff. Like if you look at what's required for Discover and Top Stories, the schema required, the logo of your site has to be a certain way. The pictures that are in it have to be a certain ratio and all that kind of stuff, eh? For the theme, I did a lot of work.
But you can still have Google Discover Stories without having schema on your pages.
Okay,
Right.
I don't know that.
I do know that.
Oh, okay. There you go. I know that on AMP it was a required element.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was just a matter of going to one Google page and saying your pictures were at least a certain size.
Yeah.
And that was what was required to be in Google Discovery.
Yeah. There's also on the publisher's logo all kinds of requirements. Like for a site thing, it's 122 square.
It just said you need to publish images a certain size, and you check a check mark saying that you follow that. And the images don't even need to be that size.
Okay, that's not what it says on the guide.
What it may say on some guide and what it is in reality aren't necessarily the
Google
same
Docs,
thing.
actually, developer's guide, Google's developer's guide.
Right. I swear I cross my heart and hope to die it's not true.
Oh, okay.
If there's enough demand for a story, they want it badly enough, they'll use it. You don't need to follow the schema.
That has something to do with it.
You don't necessarily need to have the images that size. I mean, it's like Eric Schmidt saying that brands are the greatest thing since sliced bread. It didn't mean Google was using brands as a ranking signal. It just meant that Eric Schmidt liked brands. And there are too many other people who read too much stuff into things that Eric Schmidt said.
You could say that about anybody who works for Google, though. I mean, people read anything somebody from Google says is automatically taken as gospel by some people.
It might depend on who the people are.
Well, I tend to take things that people put in implementation documents as, you know.
Right, and Schmidt saying that he liked brands was something that he said in an interview, and not something that was ever put in any technical implementation document. But the stuff about Google Developer and the schema requirements or the other requirements, Google doesn't necessarily look too closely at those requirements.
Oh, I agree that, you know, if there's no competition, their requirements become very, you know, the bar's set pretty freaking low.
Yeah.
But if there's if it's a major story and there's a lot of people writing at it, right? I think that would be the more, the better the implementation to their requirements, probably the better off you are.
Yeah, I'm just saying be careful about that because it's not true. Because I've seen plenty of stories from my site that didn't have schema.
Yeah.
They got
I've seen
published
sites
in
that
Google
had really
Discover.
bad titles that ranked, and I didn't say, you know, it's not that important if you don't have a good title. You know, object, context.
Yeah, there have been a lot of examples of Google sort of requiring one thing and not necessarily living up to it. Saying you need to publish things in lists to have those things show up in Google sets. And they didn't actually mean lists like ordered lists or numbered lists. They could have meant just text one on top of another. And that would be considered a list.
Let's say that again. Text one on top of another. Step
Text.
A is X, step B is Y. Does that
televisions, RCA,
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
LG, you know, a list of televisions. They didn't need to be an official HTML ordered list, like a numbered list or a unordered
Bulleted list. All right.
Yeah, or a definition list. They would count as a list even if it was a simple text list.
Okay.
It helps if you're the search engine and you make the rules, because then you can break them and nobody gets mad at you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So when Google says you must do this, 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 and this, but they don't mean it particularly, you know.
So it's like Google saying, so what was the thing that they passed for blog comments? No follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they came out with the no follow replacement saying sponsored and user generated content, UGC. So you can use those as attributes, but you don't have to. But they still haven't told you why you would use one or the other, what impact it would have.
The impact in the way I've always viewed anything that Google says, the impact is we are their data input for their AI testing. They put out something, there's something they want to do, and they say, okay, we need everybody to start using author schema because it'll help you in these areas. What they really mean is use author schema so we can learn what it looks like in the wild without schema, and then we don't need it anymore. And then
so changes take place at Google based on how much people are willing to let them get away with.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, Google's the reason why we now live in an opt-out economy, an opt-out society instead of an opt-in.
It's easier to
I
ask.
saw that long before search engines were.
It's easier to ask
for
forgiveness than permission.
Cable companies were doing that in the frickin' 70s and 80s, for Christ's sake. You know, we'll give it to you for free, but you have to tell us when you don't want it anymore.
Right. I had
then you get it for 6 months before you realize you'll be paying for services that you don't really use.
I had my energies switched out to Coastal Energy Alliance thing that I didn't choose and wasn't asked about, and they just put me in it and let me opt out. And
They
it
put
actually,
you in it without even letting you know?
they let us know. They just didn't let you choose whether or not you wanted to be in it. They just put you in it, and you had to opt out to not be included. And the problem is, it's so poorly run, it's probably going to cost more money to be in it.
After the cable companies did it in Canada, they actually made it that you couldn't have contracts anymore. You couldn't have opt-out. You had to have opt-in.
Well, this was decided upon by one city council member who decided she would include everybody in the city.
That's in Carlsbad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that probably came down to the cost of doing it opt-in over opt-out. And opt-out.
Well, I grew troubled after getting response back from the cable company. I changed my pricing plan with them too, and they said, okay, effective 1/1/1900, you're switched over to new pricing plan. I called them. I said, this is like over 100 years ago. Is this going to hold true? And she said, no, they probably messed up on that. I said, you think so? Just gotta watch these people carefully. So Google says, no, we don't use domain authority. So recently they said, no, we don't use page authority.
Anybody who doesn't think they're scoring pages, right, isn't paying attention.
Well, page rank and page authority are not the same thing. Moz calculates page authority differently than Google calculates page rank. So page rank and page authority do not equal each other. The troubling aspect of that is when you create a new page, in creating a new page, it automatically gets page ranked. Not very much, but it gets a little tiny bit. And that's when you start creating doorway pages, you create lots of little pages that link to one page of yours. You use anchor text that's all the same in all those pages pointing to your one page. You're multiplying how much page rank that new page is that you created. That's why Google said don't create doorway pages.
Mm-hmm. especially if you own multiple domains on multiple servers on multiple hosting companies in multiple countries. They really frown on that.
Right. it's like printing money.
That may or may not be how we opened up a auction directory with a PR8 on the homepage on like its first week that it was available.
Really.
Yeah, we made good money on that one for a while.
But PageRank, the way they calculate it, I had a PR7 and it had about 5 links to the website, and 3 of them were from sites that I own. One of the sites that was linking to it was PR7.
Now, I remember linking to pages from a PageRank 9 site, and it did incredible things to the pages linked to, ranking them.
Yeah. Because if a high-ranking page links to you and that's the only link,
Yeah.
that's going to give you a higher page rank than if you had 100 sites plus that one, believe it or not. So that's why when people say, look at how many links I have and blah, 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 well, it means fucking nothing. Looking at the quantity means nothing.
Right.
You know, and using Majestic only because that's a tool that measures that kind of stuff, right? That's why you have to look at both flows, not just one.
So I had somebody tell me that Moz ranked domain
authority,
domain ranking pages. The main domain page, how many of those were linked to your page was a great thing. And they couldn't understand why I just laughed and laughed and laughed at them. I mean, I've seen links, the effects of links from PageRank 9 and PageRank 10 sites. And you're telling me you get lots of links from domains, and the more links you have from different domains, the better?
No, it's actually better to have fewer domains with higher page rank.
Yeah.
Well, just ignore the fact that you care about quantity at all, because quality is all that really matters.
Right. To Google, the highest factor is the quality, not the number of links to it, but the quality of the sites that are linking to that site.
Yeah.
That's why when there's a lot of people with poor quality sites linking to you, I still believe you should regularly prune that crap. Because Google isn't, if they are passing any kind of value or equity to your site, Google's going to keep counting it anyways.
I used to see people who were interested in link building worry about getting links from high-ranking pages, and they would ignore links from low-ranking pages.
Yeah,
I've seen too many low-ranking pages grow up and become high-ranking pages, sometimes in short periods of time.
Every page starts at PR1. Every site starts at PR1 and goes up from there.
Yeah. I've seen legal blog, How Appealing, turn into a PageRank 8 blog in 3 months. And it was purchased by Nolo Press shortly after for a few million.
But again, that, that would only it takes less links to get a high PR than it does to get a high PR from hundreds and thousands of links. That people just don't seem to understand.
It's amazing if you've got some of these high page rank pages to link from. It's amazing how well you can do in terms of the pages that you create and link to, and get those to rank for things with just one link.
Yeah. Did you see? I was reading the other day, Bill, that Google has dropped support for all the no ODP and all that stuff. They dropped support for that. For those meta robots tags like no ODP and all those other tags that they come out with
The
few
things
years
that
back,
the things
they
that
dropped support of all that
there's
stuff.
there's no Open Directory anymore. There's no Yahoo directory, so they're not going to use the.
Oh, that would probably be why they dropped.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware, Bill, honestly.
Yeah.
Those
They-
have been so far off my radar, I didn't realize that they weren't anymore.
Right. For a while, they were saying sometimes we're going to use the ODP or the Yahoo description of your page.
Right.
If you don't create a meta description of your own. Sometimes we'll use those. Well, they've gotten rid of them.
Right.
Now, yeah, you could look them up in the Internet Archive, but why bother?
Yeah. Those sites are closed down now. The Yahoo directory is closed down?
The Yahoo directory is closed down.
Wow, I didn't know that. Jeez.
A while ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So the Google directory, it took 12 years for the patent on the Google directory to pass. And not too much longer after it passed, they closed Google directory down. It was a DMOZ clone. DMOZ allowed you to clone their links in their directory, and you can organize the links in any fashion you wanted. And Google decided to organize them by PageRank.
But that's why getting in DMOZ was so important back in the day, because it would propagate out to so many different websites. Because people
there was that. At one point, DMOZ was like a seat that it would be where they would start indexing from.
They would start focus crawls of the web,
Right.
because the categorization meant that they covered a wider range of topics than may have been included in a lot of search engines.
Yeah, same with Yahoo.
And
Now
then
Google doesn't have to rely on those kind of things.
Well, Google can use Wikipedia when they don't have DMOZ or Yahoo. Of course, Google acquired Wavy in 2013, which was Open Directory Information Exchange, which said we can crawl pages and collect information on those. We don't care about the topics or niches. There was a data visualization problem. It was how do we know for certain that we're covering all the topics that we can under this letter, under this realm or niche set of categories? We don't know for certain. So they used to do focused crawls of the web, and they would focus upon directories like DMOZ or Yahoo to make sure they covered those categories.
Right.
And then DMOZ and Yahoo disappear.
Well, and I think Google also got to the point where they didn't need them for that anymore. Between sitemaps and whatnot, the use of sitemaps in the early days was not very prominent, really.
Was not very what?
Prominent. like an XML sitemap, partially because they weren't around at the beginning, which is why you had HTML sitemaps.
So XML sitemaps were developed to save the search engines money, because it's cheaper to download a text file from a website than it is to crawl the links on a website.
Right. But if they crawl the pages anyways, they're going to find all the links.
So the benefit of an XML sitemap is that you can tend to find things quicker.
Possibly.
You don't have to work link by link throughout a whole site.
Yeah, it also gives you a way to prioritize. For instance, when I did my sitemaps, I used to put the blog, which had hundreds of pages in it, at the end, so that it would go through the regular pages first and then go to the blog. And I would arrange the blog in an order of prioritization, i.e. those that I know were ranking or could rank, and those that I know were never going to rank.
There's a white paper from Google, Beyond the Call of Duty, which talks about XML sitemaps from PubMed, two other, Amazon, and one other very large website. It might have been the New York Times, PubMed and Amazon. And it showed the different strategies they had towards indexing all the pages of all those sites based on how they were organizing the XML sitemaps.
Yeah, I would imagine too, they were more worried about image sitemaps as well. That's, I've never bothered with images on a website. I thought that was...
They were talking about how to get new pages indexed. What's a good strategy for that? And how to organize the XML so that you get new pages indexed.
Oh, yeah. You put the new pages first.
Now, some sites you generate lots of new pages all the time, like a news site like New York Times.
Right. And the size of a site has a lot to do with whether it needs a sitemap. Like a 10-page brochure site does not need a sitemap.
Right, but PubMed's not some 10-page brochure site.
Pardon me?
But PubMed's not some 10-page brochure site. I mean, you're indexing all the sicknesses and all the ailments and treatments you can. You're going to have a lot of pages. But they're all developing new ways to organize stuff. So Amazon has a product graph now they've been working on. They've actually started coming out with some presentations on how it's set up and how it differs from the Google Knowledge Graph. So the product graph, they're talking about it in terms of what Google had been saying about Mom, where they mentioned using images. So if you're going to show products, you include pictures of them, what they look like in the knowledge graph, so people can identify the products by what they look like.
Right.
So what does Amazon say? Amazon
is training pages using machine learning approach. They're organizing everything. It's an ontology rather than a taxonomy, because they're saying how things are related to each other, but they're multimodal. They don't just use text. They use audio. They use visual images. So there are more ways to look at a product than just read about it.
That makes a lot of sense, especially for a product-oriented business.
Right. They're using different G-Tensor products too in the product graph. So they can capture all the identifiers. For something like Amazon, which has multiple products with different G10s, I mean, there are lots of those. End up with different distributors in the marketplace, the Amazon marketplace, for the same products. And it's good to keep track of the different distributors, I guess.
So it must be somehow weighted what they do, because they're expanding from text to images to they're probably videos. A lot of those products have little product video things,
Some products just have audio built into them. And some products are best described by including the video. I had a client who had a confetti gun website. And you never knew you wanted to own a confetti gun until you visited their website and watched their videos of people shooting confetti off at things like the Republican National Convention. You see this confetti streaming everywhere. You say, this is pretty neat. I want one of these. So they were having these confetti guns used at lots of different events. Sporting events, political events, all kinds of things. And just about every page had like a 30-second video on it. So you could see the product in action.
Yeah, well, because it's an action product.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's useful. Terry, you were telling us about a music website where you had people playing different musical instruments. And videos made a difference for that, right?
Oh, yeah. We, I think they have about 300 videos.
And each one, and they're for different instruments?
It's called World Music Supply. Their rankings went through the roof. They don't have to do AdWords anymore or anything like that.
You want to see somebody play something, you go to the website, search for the instrument. Yeah.
Well, the videos are embedded on the website as well with the product, and that helps a lot. And I think when videos score very high on YouTube, they also rank better than the web page without that video on it. That's been my experience at any rate.
So you weren't getting that ranked by YouTube?
No.
So, but the videos that are embedded on the website are actually embedded from YouTube. So
right, they're embedded from YouTube, and that's the important part. I will never, ever understand why people insist on publishing, like hosting their own video or putting it on a place like what's it called,
Vimeo.
Yeah, Vimeo, those kind of places, because they don't rank in Google.
No, they don't.
You know, and to say that you think you can rank it in Google, well, you're lying to your customer.
Oh,
So
so
if
you
you're-
can rank your Vimeo video on Google? People,
I
So you-
have not seen that. I've
haven't
seen them
that.
rank on YouTube, but there's an agreement between YouTube and Vimeo for like recording artists and people like that. There's some kind of deal between them that they can show the Vimeo official videos on Google, on YouTube.
On YouTube.
Not Google, YouTube.
So you have a video that's embedded on your site from YouTube. You're outranking the YouTube video with your
Yes.
web page.
Yeah.
It's like such a win-win situation.
Yeah, especially when they first came out, it was #1 with a bullet on every one of the search because they placed it there, and then about a month later, they
Yeah.
moved it down, and it was #10. So they tried it at the top, tried it at the bottom, and then it went towards the middle. And I think that was. Don't quote me on this, but I believe videos were the first time that they put an actual picture in the search.
Wow.
So universal search was images, videos, news, local, and organic results.
Right. But the video listing was one of the few where it was the page with the video on it. Others is like it would show 3 or 4 images from a bunch of sites. Not
Yeah.
as good a listing as that video one was. Because yeah. And the reason that I also outranked the video from YouTube was because I didn't put very long descriptions on the YouTube video. And
Yeah.
I linked to the page from the YouTube
Oh, in
video.
the YouTube description, you link
See,
to the
that's the important part is you have to link back to your site to get the real value from.
But that's ideally what you want anyway.
Yeah,
You
well,
want
that's
your-
how you get them to the site.
You want your web page to rank #1.
Yeah. But also in that particular thing, and a lot of the way you use video is how it benefits the sale, right? In that case,
Yeah.
musicians, it's important to see how the instrument looks when it's being played and that kind of stuff. That plays as much into the sale as anything else.
It's like if you went to any music store in the world, you always find people in there whose first job wasn't to sell, but to play.
Yeah.
And they would play pianos, play organs, play guitars. And
Well,
they
they're
always
in
had-
there looking at seeing what they can buy next.
But most musical places always had that. You go into a shopping mall, and there'd always be an organ store, and there'd always be somebody playing.
Yeah, but music stores are few and far between these days. They're all online.
Yeah, but it's the whole idea of, because I used to do cooking demonstrations for high-end kitchen appliances.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole idea was, you know, if you spend $30,000 on this range, you'll be able to cook like this, you know, which is total hogwash, but that was the idea behind it, was, you know,
So-
make fabulous
where-
food so people will buy these appliances.
So where did they hold those cooking demonstrations?
They were usually in I worked for the wholesaler, so they
Yeah.
were usually in retail places that sold appliance retail stores. Some of them have, like well, in Marin County, for instance, they had demonstration kitchens with marble countertops and mirrors up above so people could see whatever
Yeah.
you were doing, and all of that, because those retailers understand how good food sells cooking appliances,
Hmm.
So
So in San Diego County, we have uh, people with demonstrations in the wine and spirits section of the supermarkets,
right.
and we have food demonstrations in Costco's. People cooking, people preparing different products. Uh, so they're showing off how the stuff works at places like Costco.
Right, right. Except that at the appliance retail outlets,
Yeah.
it's it's not about cookies. It's about roast leg of lamb with fennel and blah blah blah, and then the side dishes. And I mean, I used to cook a whole meal, so and then serve it to whoever happened to pass by.
Yeah, buy this appliance. You can cook your whole meal in 15 minutes and it'll be
Yeah,
a
right. And
five-star.
it'll all taste like this. The whole
Yeah.
idea was to cook excellent
It took
food.
15 minutes, it'll taste like it
Right,
took hours.
and
Yeah,
so
I'm just finding I'm shopping the wrong places.
well, actually, one of the things that happened is I started this job in Northern California, and it was really fun. It was really fun because they just gave you a budget, and then you could cook
Yeah.
whatever. And and then I had to move to Southern California because of family stuff. And I called up and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to move to Southern California. Thanks for the good times." And they said, "Oh, no, we need people in Southern California." So, but one of the things that happened was in Northern California, everybody's like, "Why are you using that knife instead of this knife?" And, "Why are you using this pepper instead of that pepper?" People are into food. Yet I lived in Sonoma County, which is food
Yeah.
and wine, And, but in Southern California, people were like, "Lamb. I've never had lamb before." Or, "Wow, that's real food. I thought it was plastic." I heard that 5 times, 5 separate times. And I'm like, woo. And the questions were, what is the cutout for this? Because people were buying high-end appliances to upscale apartments or whatever homes. They were never going to cook. They were only going to install these high-end appliances to make their properties more valuable. It was a very different experience. It wasn't about food in Southern California.
So the people you were showing the products to in Northern California were buying to improve their own personal kitchens.
Yes. And yes. Yeah, food is a big deal in the San Francisco Bay Area, and especially in the counties north of San Francisco, Marin and Sonoma. People are way into food. That's just not the case in Southern California. I mean, my whole shopping experience was different in Southern California because I had to find the food. In Northern California, I just, whatever recipes I felt, I'd make the shopping list. I go shopping and I get the stuff. In Southern California, I had to figure out if that ingredient was going to be available anywhere, and sometimes I had to call call ahead and find out. It was a completely different experience from start to finish. And I
So
scaled.
I'm noticing a lot of people are concerned about outdoor living spaces in Southern California.
Yeah, no, they don't. It's a very different experience. Anyway, that was the whole idea, was that, you know, if you buy this appliance, you too can make food like this, you know.
Mm-hmm. So we even have cultural differences within the same state.
Absolutely. Well, everybody is quite aware that Northern and Southern California have different cultures. Yeah. So I never did find any bread in Southern California. Actually, I did. One of my friends owned a restaurant.
Yeah.
And he ordered extra bread for me.
Yeah.
Because they didn't sell the bread retail, they only sold it to restaurants. It's like, because I was bewailing my fate to my daughter, and my
Well,
daughter
that
super
happens.
passionate, and she said, "Mommy, you just have to understand, they don't have educated palates." Because I was being very grumpy about the restaurant fare.
So they do that with bread in the East Coast too.
Yeah.
In a place like Philadelphia, which sells cheesesteaks, but there are all kinds of Italian bakeries that do the rolls
Right.
for cheesesteaks, that sell rolls to the restaurants that make cheesesteaks. And you can't buy the rolls directly. Well, you can now, because it's changed over time. You can
But
buy
you
the
just
rolls
had to buy
directly.
you just had to buy the sandwiches.
You have to stand in line to buy the rolls as a non-restaurant.
Well, I don't know how you would translate something like food being prepared and tasting it, and people are tasting the real food, right?
Yeah.
How you could translate that to a website? I don't think it is. I was just like,
I was thinking, what happens if you go through a pandemic and all your kitchen presentations are canceled, which they probably would be.
they would be, because they were out in public. Yep. But I haven't done that job in a while, but it was really fun.
You know, we saw what COVID did to clients. We lost travel business. We lost uh, some others that depended on people gathering and getting together. Uh, Things like Zoom boosted off the shelves, improved from 20 million a year to 200 million.
Well, I think it's really interesting how the live live web experiences has blossomed during the pandemic. I mean, you know, several of you were on Hangouts, and we had sort of this advanced experience of what it was like to do things like that. But I just this morning was in a test session for a conference. I'm going to be on a panel next weekend, and they're testing everybody because it's going to be through StreamYard. Hello, you know, here we are on
Yeah.
StreamYard, and and they were just testing to make sure that everybody's connection worked, and
I'm
there
on
were
a
people there who had that was their first experience. You know,
I'm on a presentation tomorrow using a app I've never used before. It's and they're giving a presentation later today on how to use that app. And it's just a video conferencing app. I downloaded it. I started it up. It looks like every other video conferencing
video
app.
conferencing app. Yeah.
The only difference is the name on the package.
Right. I would think that would be a tough sell right now.
I kept thinking through the whole pandemic that Google picked a great time to drop Hangouts.
They Google what?
Picked a good
Picked a
time.
great time to drop Hangouts.
Well, they didn't get rid of Hangouts. They just made them enterprise.
Yeah.
They made them part of the package.
Oh, they are part of the enterprise package.
Yeah.
In other words,
there's some personal something, right, that works with chat, Google Chat. Something I've never used. I've forgotten what it's called.
Duo.
Yes.
They had now chat explosion. They came out with like 4 or 5 different chat-based products. It's sort of like a Yahoo peanut butter manifesto problem. So we've got Yahoo Photos. No, we've got Flickr. No, we've got both.
Yeah. But chat works, at least for business chat works, because you can say, hey, do you have a time to talk? And then you set up a meet.
And some of the video conferencing programs weren't being used too much. There was like GoToMeeting and there was Join Me. There's 1 or 2 others that and Zoom got selected. I have no idea how it got selected. Somebody went online to find a video chat and it was the first one they found, maybe?
it was free.
Yeah, it was free. But still, there's still a free version.
It's used for 40 minutes, and then if you want it longer, we charge you. So you have 40-minute long classes, and that's it.
I like Zoom for client discussions because you can record everything, so that when they go sideways and start saying stuff, you can say, well, back on November 12th, you said X. Have you changed your mind? Which is something I learned in the financial world. Because people do that, they'd say, yes, I want this and I want that, and then 6 months later, they're, you must experience that with setting up SEO. People say they want this, that, and the other, and then you implement it and they say, oh no, I didn't want that.
If you have a good project manager, they not only write those things out, they assign tasks to people, and they send emails to people telling them these are all the things that we talked about. Here's what you agreed to do. Here's what we agreed to do. So just having those emails I've worked in some places where the project managers did stuff like that, and I've worked in other places where they didn't do stuff like that. It really helps when they
It
keep track
really
of
does.
things.
It really does help because people do go sideways, and they forget what you said and they forget what they said. And doing that kind of documentation, if you will,
Yeah.
really makes a difference.
It really does.
I mean, it seems so straightforward and simple, but I know a lot of people don't do that, and it it just makes a big difference. Or you meet to discuss a project, and then for whatever reason, the project gets put on hold for a while. I mean a while, like 2 or 3 months for whatever the reasons. And then they come back and they say, okay, we're ready for, the email sequences, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my gosh, because if you didn't take notes and you didn't do that original documentation, it's like you're back to square one. And then it feels to them like you weren't paying any attention. Because for the business, it's all one thing, and for you, all these other things have happened in between the time of that original proposal and agreement and the time they decide to implement.
If you're going to run a business, it helps to maintain those things, to keep the pace, to keep things moving along,
Mm-hmm.
to assign tasks and to follow them, see if they get done. So I noticed that in my earliest days in SEO agencies, we had a lot more sets of recommendations that didn't get implemented. More recently, we set up tasks and assign things, and everything gets done. And SEO works a lot better when everything gets done.
It's amazingly enough, that is exactly true. I know I work with one group and we use Trello. Everybody knows where every part of every task is and who's working on it and all of that stuff.
Now, it's good when you have the regular meetings and everybody's talking to each other, and you have them open for questions, and you have the sessions where people talk things out, and you get introduce the right developers to implement things.
I know for me, meetings where you meet people, it's usually the other way around. There's somebody who wants me to work on a project for the business, and then all of a sudden the vice president of this and the director of that is coming to the meeting because they're going to have some kind of input on what's going to be happening with the project. So I find those often are difficult because I feel like they're project by committee. I mean, you guys get to stay in control.
So I've been to meetings where the agency I was with would have 5 people there, and we'd have one client, and the other 4 people I didn't always know what most of them did. There would presumably be a project manager, and that would be the person responsible for tracking everything and assigning everything. And sometimes they were so new, they didn't know what they were doing either.
That's a problem.
When your project manager sends you an email saying, "Hey, I liked your email," and you send a response back saying, "Yeah, I was expecting one like it from you," they get upset because you just told them that they aren't doing their job.
Yep. I know my son has had communication problems because of management changes. A manager above him, and he quit. And so there's no interface between upper management and his project. And they also changed out all the team members. So it's like working at a completely different place, as it were.
Yeah.
Even though theoretically he's doing the same job. That stuff happens.
I was working at another agency, and my client tells me, "Hey, the guys you work for, they've told me that no more SEO can be done to our website." And I told them, I've looked at your website, and it's absolutely not true at all. There's plenty that can be done. And they said, "Well, do you mind telling those guys that?" I said, "No, I don't mind at all." Because, if nothing could be done, there would be no reason for me to be there.
Exactly.
And there were plenty of things that we could do to improve it. And the guy who was the head of marketing for their company contacted me a year or so later and said, "Hey, you did so much SEO and did so many good things that the board of directors was actually shocked because so much was being done. So many things were being sold." That was SEO that we were doing after my bosses told them no more SEO could be done for the site.
Yeah, that
That'd be
usually
strange
we
feedback.
don't know anything more. We can do. That's what that means.
That may be what it means.
You can always find something, No website is perfect. You can always improve it.
All you needed to do was look at the website and put yourself in the perspective of a potential audience member for the site. How are they going to find products on that site? They're going to search using language that doesn't exist on those pages. And the pages need to be changed so that people would actually search for what they were offering.
I had a client recently who had, I thought his website was organized very well, but with the language, he would have all these little internal codes for himself. The HN2 model. That means nothing to a consumer visiting his website,
Right, you've got to get rid of the jargon and use the words they're going to use.
Yes, absolutely.
You understand who your audience is. Talk to your customer service. Talk to your sales. Say, can our customers understand this? Because the people who deal with your customers all the time are the people who should be helping you build your website.
Yep. I mean, your customers have to understand it. It has to be in their language. Doesn't matter what your language is. It has to be in their language.
And we're way past the top of the hour.
Oh, we are. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, that was fun.
But yeah, that's definitely true. Understand your audience and how they talk.
Yep.
Make sure it's on the website. The words they use, the questions they ask. That makes all the difference. When they try to find the site, when they found it and try to read it, can they understand it? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Take care now.